Did you know that 97% of business owners never break $1 million in revenue? So today's guest, I have Allison Maslan. She has not only done that, but has done it in 10 businesses that she owns. And she's also helped 150,000 other founders to do the same exact thing. Now, before all of this, though, she was definitely at age 19 buried in her work, and she was in a situation that almost took her life, almost took everything from her. She's going to talk all about that and how that switched things in her mind. And now she finds herself flying through life in her own way. And she'll talk about that as well. So if you feel stuck at any reason in your business and you're looking to scale and you want to do it in a whole different way of thinking, this is the episode for you. So let's go jump in with Allison Maslan. It takes a lot to grow your business. I'm talking about attracting an audience, lead scoring with your new leads and customers, and also just managing all of the channels that you got to manage. A lot of managing. So a lot of long days, late nights, weekends, hopefully not too many of those. There's a better way, and that's what Breeze. It's made by HubSpot. It's a new collection of AI tools. It's even easier for people like us, marketers, to attract an audience, increase leads, and score those customers really quickly. It means you're going to have a lot more time back and a lot to celebrate. So visit HubSpot.com/marketers to learn more. Hey, before you get into the episode, I urge you to hit pause and go check out the AI Digital Mind. It's like a digital twin of this podcast and a whole bunch of other content I've released. Go to hustleandflowchart.com/AI Joe. It's hustleandflowchart.com/AI Joe. You can literally chat with this podcast, with me and my guests in text, audio, and video for free. If you want one of these made for yourself, if you're interested, go to hustleandflowchart.com/interest, and we make these things out. So enjoy. Let's get to the episode. Allison, we're here. We're finally doing this a recording, which is nice because we share a mastermind together here in San Diego, which, I feel like I chatted with your husband last time at the holiday party. I love Mike. That guy's so fun too.
Yeah, so. He is.
But you and I haven't chatted enough. And I'm like, man, I think this is a nice focused time that we could do that,
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah. And I got to thank you for having us at your house one of the nights, because first thing I noticed when I was there, I was like, you have a massive trapeze in your backyard. I'm like, what's up with that?
It's kind of hard to miss, isn't it?
Tell me about that, because I know it fits in here, but let's just start there. Like, what's up with the trapeze? What does it mean to you too?
Well, my mom always jokes that when I was born, the doctor literally said that I belonged in a circus because apparently I was pretty flexible as a baby, so who knew? But I was a gymnast growing up, and my gym teacher actually built me a set of uneven bars in my backyard made out of plastic tubing.
Yeah, it right? So
it worked. And I was out there swinging around. I used to do that so much as a kid, and I competed professionally and in college. And so I was always an athlete. And then in my 30s, I discovered the flying trapeze. And when I was up there, first of all, I thought I didn't even know anyone could actually do this or learn this, but I was so hooked. And I think it kind of brought me back to my childhood. And so I've actually been training for over 20 years. And I found a 5-generation circus family that performed in Ringling Brothers for 25 years.
Wow.
That many of the Cirque du Soleil people train with. And so I drove to LA every single week. And then when we moved into the house we are now with more land, I was like, I am putting a trapeze here. I think my husband thought I was kind of joking.
Yeah.
But when he saw this massive piece of equipment being, built, he's like, wow, she's really serious about this. So yeah, I'm back there flying all the time and doing flips and everything. It's really my happy place.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that because I think it was one of the first things I asked you there too. I'm like, that's unique. What's the story here? And, like, how do you use it now? Like, are you out there training to be in the next circus team, or is it more of
Yeah.
like a practical?
No, well, first of all, I don't fly by myself because that would be dangerous. And so you need to have a catcher, you need to have somebody up on the board with you, and then we often have somebody on the ground as well.
Okay.
And I'm not going to be running off with the circus at this point in my life, or Cirque du Soleil, maybe next time around. But I'm always aspiring to grow. I've been working on my double back flip and some other big tricks. And the greatest thing for me is that I get to face my fear up there and have major breakthroughs, which then when I'm on the ground, it just, I end up having more breakthroughs here. I face my fear and I stretch myself. And so it really is the perfect alliance of me, going after my dreams up there in the air, and I see myself doing it on the ground as well.
I mean, never have flown like that, but my sister-in-law, I think, had. There's some places you can go to and kind of practice or try it out. And that's what I've heard is like, you're in the air. I mean, you're literally flying. I mean,
you are literally flying. There is nothing like it. And you're in the moment because, when you're focused on your business, you're thinking about all the things. Like your brain is always going. I don't know if yours is, but mine is.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're up there, you have to be focused. You have to visualize. You have to really lock it in. You have to have your eyes open, your ears open, everything. And so it's like a moving meditation in a sense.
Yeah.
And I just feel so good and my head feels so clear when when I'm done.
I think everyone, and I talk about it often, I took up jujitsu 6-7 months ago, and it's for a similar reason. I find it's like meditative because you're going with the motions. You have to think on the fly quickly. It's physical. Different obviously, but similar. And I feel like practices like that, just to quiet the entrepreneurial mind that gets a little wonky sometimes.
Yes.
You need to layer something in there.
You
balance
do.
the hustle.
Everybody needs that. My husband golfs, and you've got to be really focused. It's such a mindset game. Yeah. And I think those things are really healthy. Plus, we operate from our neck up in our business so much. And so really to fully integrate it within our body and use it. Because you're going to lose it if you don't.
Absolutely. Keep moving that body. You only got one. So Allison, I mean, you've lived wild life from the research that I've gone down. I did some deep diving and
oh no,
skeletons are coming out. No, I'm just kidding. But you're scaling businesses left and right. You have a full team, mentors, everything you're doing at Pinnacle. It's really cool. In the mastermind, I've heard other ways that you're scaling, and I'm just like, whoa, like this is true scale. I mean, you wrote a book on it. You've done a lot. What was like? But I'm curious of the story before, because you have a lot of great strategies for scaling I want to get to, and helping people break through of maybe the doing themselves. And maybe it depends on the size of the business. But what was your story starting out? Because what was it, 40-ish years? Or you started at like 19, I think, right?
Yes.
Business for yourself. So
yeah.
Was it scale in mind then, or no?
I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My father was very passionate about his business. My grandfather started a women's clothing store in Kansas City called Maslan's, and then won a second store in a poker game in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I was born.
Yeah.
And my grandfather and my father checked out this store to see, okay, what did we win here? And is this worth even taking over? And what they learned from the experience was it was a great store, but they weren't selling the right products for the right market. And so my dad ended up taking that company, which is called Stewart's, and scaling it across the Midwest, over 50 locations.
Wow.
And so as a young girl, I would go with him from store to store, and I just took in so much, just being around that energy. And he was always so innovative and courageous. And so I really didn't know anything else. and I couldn't hold a job for more than 2 weeks. So I had to figure out this entrepreneurial thing. And so my first company, I started when I was 19 doing brochures and greeting cards, and that evolved to a full service advertising and PR firm when I was 25.
Yeah, nice.
But I didn't know how to scale. I had no idea.
Yep.
And I was taking on big clients like Ben & Jerry's and Supercuts and Charlotte Russe and helping them with their marketing and building a small team. But I ended up getting buried in the work like so many entrepreneurs do. One day I woke up and I was like, the business is running me into the ground instead of me running it. And I was so burned out from the stress of it all and ended up having a terrible car accident that just about took my life. And so that was my massive wake-up call to go, okay, well, clearly something isn't working here.
Yeah.
And so that became my my determination, my mission to figure out, how was it that Ben & Jerry's or Supercuts, my clients, you didn't see the CEO standing over everybody like an orchestra leader, micromanaging. They were out there building great strategic relationships, partnerships, and building the future of the company. And so I began to study how this was working, and that became the impetus for me to go on and build 9 more companies that haven't depended on me, to be founder independent. And so that's really what we do day in and day out at Pinnacle Global Network, is helping business owners build a team-managed, scalable company.
I like it. Founder independent too, because that makes all the sense. And yeah, you look at these other companies that are actually scaling, they're thinking of partnerships, the bigger picture, the strategic moves or gaps in the market, product market fit, like you said, even in the beginning. So when you're drowning in the work or the inbound stuff or just hustling in general, it's like, yeah, you lose track of a lot of this stuff. Take me back, because there's also, I know you have a whole cool, unique way of partnerships and not, it's more collaboration than competition, which I want to touch on. But take me to the car accident, because what I feel like there's a bigger story or meaning of, like, because you said work was burying you, like what was the tipping point there from this grind mode to now it's like, oh man, I got to change things up?
Well, it sneaks up on you. And most people are living on autopilot, right? And you're just thinking of what's the next thing I got to do and what's the next thing I got to do. You're not really examining your life and how you feel. And my daughter at the time was under 2 years old. So I was also managing, taking care of her as well.
That's tough.
And so I just felt that. I remember driving down by the beach in San Diego and seeing all these people hanging out at the beach. And I remember thinking, how do they even get to do that? And here I'm living in this beautiful city, and I wasn't able to fully live my life. I was working weekends. I was working till 2 or 3 in the morning, creating ad campaigns. And I had a small team, but I was such a control freak. I felt like I had to have my eyes on everything going in and out of the company. And that's, so many business owners are like that. You think you're doing the right thing. Yeah. You think you're keeping things from falling apart and that it's your responsibility. But here I had these great people and I was in their way. And so, just from the weight of it, but I was doing it to myself, but I didn't know. And so I was fearful. I was exhausted. I felt trapped in my circumstances because I just didn't really know what else to do. And then I was embarrassed to ask for help. And I thought, something's wrong with me, right? That's what we always do. Something's wrong with me. I should be able to figure this out. And you're making money. You should be grateful. Like, oh my gosh, all these different emotions. Yeah. So that's where I think the universe was kind of like a little tired of dealing with me and just said, look, let's wake her up. Don't kill her, but and so, that was my wake up call.
Wow. Yeah. And just the build up to that, because, there's a lot of things that we just don't see. Yeah, we're blind to sometimes the obvious things around us. Car accident. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that can happen otherwise as well. Yeah, I mean, that's a wake up call. I mean, because I'm thinking, you mentioned so many things, like people getting in the way of great people that you hire. Delegation, of course, is a term that everyone's said, but in the moment when you're grinding, it ain't that obvious, right? Like, you're not thinking of that. You're just trying to get the stuff done, moving to the next thing, trying to make more money to live in San Diego or whatever you're trying to do, freedom.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for sure. And I had a lot of people depending on me and looking up to me. And I, felt like I needed to keep it together outwardly, even though inwardly I was crumbling and, just trying to hold it together personally. And I think that was probably the hardest thing. I think business owners put an enormous amount of pressure on themselves to get it all right. And I think if I would have just lightened up and asked for help back then, I would have gotten it. But, I don't regret it, because that's where some of my biggest lessons came from. And, I do remember a very powerful moment back then when I was in the hospital, and, it was a pretty serious accident. But once I kind of knew that everything was going to be okay, the first thought that came to my mind was, what if you're in the same place a year from now or 10 years from now? And that it literally was like somebody was speaking to me. And I knew that if I didn't make a change, I would be in the same place. And time just goes so fast. Yeah. And so that really lit this fire under my feet to say that, if this is success, I don't want it. I love business, but I need to do it a new way. And so that was where I just became super determined to learn. And, because of that, it really was the best experience, because it set me up on my mission for my life. Because once I figured it out for myself, I also realized that millions of business owners struggle with the same thing.
Absolutely.
In fact, 97% of business owners never even make it past $1 million in revenue. And this is really why, because they're in their own way.
They're not thinking of, outside of them, or even maybe their small team, but they're in their way. They're just creating friction in all areas, right?
Yes.
And so before we get there, because I want to ask the question, maybe I'll just seed it now, is scaling. Because a lot of folks won't even think of scale until some point. I mean, who knows when, what is that tipping point? And I guess that's for everyone to ask themselves. And for you, Allison, this car accident was a moment where, for whatever reason, that question came to your mind, like, what's it going to look like in 5 to 10 years? And like, do you see the people, because, Pinnacle is obviously coaching, mentoring a ton of business owners. Is that a pretty recurring thing, that these moments happen and then like the question needs to happen? Or like,
yes.
How do you coach people through that, and how do they identify, maybe it's not a car accident, but it could be something else?
Well, hopefully, they get to us before then.
Right. I'm going to pause this really fast to go shout out another podcast that I think you should peek at yourself. It's called I Digress. It's hosted by Troy Sandage, and it's also brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals like you. And what I love about this podcast is that he keeps it short and snappy. It's actionable and to the point. It's under 30 minutes. I Digress actually helps you eliminate a bunch of complexities and complications, confusion when it comes to your business, your marketing, gives you a bunch of frameworks and strategies to help you scale and actually be sustainable with whatever success means to you. So go check it out yourself. I urge you to go listen to I Digress wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm going to do a quick shout out one more time for the thing I talked about at the top of the episode, which is the AI version of me and of this podcast and my YouTube videos and all these things. It all lives within this AI platform. I used Delphi.ai to create it, and I want you to use mine. It's totally free. Go to hustleandflowchart.com/AI Joe. That's hustleandflowchart.com/AI Joe. Test this thing out. It's crazy. You could type with it, talk with it. You can even use video, and you can look up anything from this podcast. You can ask a question about your business, life, any scenario. It kind of learns about you with the information you give it. It's rad. You will love it. And also, there's a lot of people who are asking, how do I get one of these? How do I build it out? The cool thing is my team and I have been building a ton of these every single day. I've used the platform, Delphi.ai, for 2 years. I'm actually one of their advisors because I was one of their first users and just gave them a ton of feedback. I love it. But we build these things. So if you want to use it for lead generation, for, you have all this content as an expert, author, coach type person, we can put that into this digital brain and make it interactive. You could use it for customer service, internal training for your team, for your organization, lots of uses. If you would like one of these, I can pass over an exclusive deal. There's no one else that's offering this out there. I work closely with Delphi as one of their partners, agency partners, to build this out. So hit me up, type hustleandflowchart.com/interest into whatever browser. Again, that's hustleandflowchart.com/interest, and hit me up. Let's build this thing together. All right, back to the episode.
We primarily mentor business owners in the 7 and 8, multiple 8 figures. And by the time they've come to us, many of them have been stuck in that same mode that I was in for decades. And it's just become their life. And, it's affected their health or relationships in one way or another. And they can feel very lonely at the top and feeling stuck. And many of them have managed to grow even, 50, 100 employees, but they're still very much buried in the weeds. And so the first thing we have to do is create awareness. We have to put a mirror up for them to see what they're doing and how they're in their own way. And we help them determine what phase that they're in the scaling process. And so once they know, and many of them they're in the third phase, which we call the ringleader. And the ringleader is like a circus, interestingly enough, because we were just talking about that earlier, the circus. But they are growing, and they're growing teams. They might have a customer service team, a sales team, a marketing team, all of those things. But they're not aligned with the vision. And so the CEO of the company, the founder, needs to be more of that visionary CEO focused on the future. And so often you have team that is a revolving door. And generally it's happening because we're bringing team members on before we're super clear about that vision and what success looks like for every single one of those roles. You have to really understand what they're reaching for, what those metrics are. And if you know, then you can communicate it to them. If you don't know, they're not going to be able to reach it. Then everybody gets frustrated, and then you jump back in to save the day. Right. And this is where that hamster wheel starts. And so many business owners come to us right there, and they've been there for so long. And once we kind of shine the light on them and show them what's happening and help them to back up, re-strategize, and restructure, really, they grow fast. They get out of their own way. They have more freedom than they have ever experienced. They're taking vacations without checking their email 50 times a day. And now they have this great team. And many of them, I get messages all the time. Oh my gosh, I had my biggest month and I'm not even there. So that's a great feeling for an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. It is. And so for thinking scale, you said 7, 8 figure folks. I mean, you're still, you have this PTSD of being in the grind for probably just decades, for a lot of folks. And when would you recommend people to start thinking this way with scale in mind, maybe being realistic and knowing hey, you're not that 7-figure business yet, or you're not that 8-figure yet.
Yes.
What would you suggest they start thinking and doing?
Well, honestly, I wish I knew this stuff way back then.
Sure.
Because if you know this from the beginning, then you know what you're reaching for and you can plan for it. Now, in the early days, you're just trying to figure out your products and services. You're trying to get your customer journey lined up and get more clear on your target market. All of those things have to happen in the beginning. There's really not a lot of scaling or multiplying what you're doing because you're just laying out the groundwork. But once you do, and if you can get support early on and get out of the way, you're going to scale faster. There's been a statistic that if you hire, like even an assistant, in the first 6 months of your business, you will get to 7 figures in half the time.
Wow.
If you really empower that assistant to do those things that are just taking up so much of your time and keeping you, out of working on the business and the business growth.
Yeah. Do you recommend, because I've heard folks tracking their time or activities or their energy level, like is there a way that you would recommend folks to have awareness? Because you mentioned that earlier. It's just having awareness of the issue or maybe
Yes.
potential issue. Like what are there some practices you could recommend?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I'm sure there's a way for AI to even do this better. This is something where you could recommend.
Right.
But one of the things you want to do is, first of all, divide up the company into 4 quadrants. So you want to look at your business from operations side, your marketing, your sales, and then whatever your revenue stream is, whatever your offering is. So for us, it's mentoring. And then, so let's just say you take a piece of paper and you divide it into these 4 quadrants. Then in each of those areas, write down everything that you're still doing in the business. And it may take you a while because so much of this you do unconsciously, you don't even realize that you're doing it. And just keep writing and writing and writing down everything that you do. Another thing you can do, because some things you won't remember, is over a 3-4 day period, literally write down everything that you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then once you look at it, I like dividing it in the 4 quadrants because it helps you think of the whole company holistically. And then you see, okay, which area of the business is taking up most of my time? Is it sales? Is it operations? And you want to divide that by percentages. And then the one that's taking up the most time, you work on first to replace yourself.
Got it.
And for some of the things that if it's your special delivery of what you do, that's probably going to take a little longer to replace yourself. So if you're an attorney or if you're an electrician or, you're a psychologist, but you're also the CEO of the business, ultimately you need to replace yourself with other attorneys so that you can focus on building that vision and being the CEO of the company, leading the team, and so forth. So usually those are the areas that you replace yourself last, but still you need to do it. But once you have it all on paper, you do that big brain dump, then you can see, oh my gosh, if I stop attending these meetings, okay, that's given me back, all right, 6 hours a week. And if I let go of this task in marketing, whether it's, I don't know, if it's copywriting or it is doing some work in admin, whatever it is, all of those things add up. So your goal is to get your hours back and have other people that is their expertise. That's their superpower to take that off your plate.
I have a project manager that she literally says that all the time. She's like, I love doing this kind of stuff. I'm like, thank God.
I know. We love our project managers, right? Yeah. They're amazing at what they do. Yeah. So my form of project managing is, wake up at 3 a.m. going, oh my God.
Oh, is it? Yeah, that would be mine too. And I think most founders, right? Like, would you say most founders, people starting the company, I mean, of course you came from a family of entrepreneurs, which maybe you have some insights. Are most of us visionaries, kind of, maybe not the best at organization? I know we come in all flavors, but
yeah.
Are there some themes that you've noticed?
Well, I do think that if you have that as your background and you grew up in it, it is a little easier to step into it.
I bet.
Some
Yeah.
people struggle though, if let's say your parents lost their business or went bankrupt or, they had some trauma there. We have to be careful not to project that in our own life and always be in this kind of poverty mindset. That can be a challenge you have to overcome. I do think coming from a corporate background, I've seen very successful entrepreneurs come from the corporate background, but I think it's harder
Yeah.
because it's a different way of thinking. And especially if you've been running a department, for instance, in the corporate business.
Yeah, not the full
As a
thing.
business owner, you're wearing many hats and you have to learn to be strategic and a big thinker and look at the gaps within the company and how to close those gaps. And also, you have to understand how to pivot quickly, as we know for what's happened over the last several years.
Yeah, and you mentioned AI, and as you're talking about all this stuff, I'm thinking of how would I do this brain dump of operations, marketing, sales, revenue streams? Like, I would get AI. I would get out my phone, go on a walk, probably to start, and just start rambling into something like otter.ai. And, that can help me then distill it down. And then, of course, I think the writing, all the modalities. And then, AI is one example of how to take a lot of admin off your plate these days. With
Yes.
automations and things coming. So next
Yes.
couple of years, Allison, will be wild. I think
I
people will
know.
love it.
It really is.
Yeah.
We've been through a lot as entrepreneurs the last several years.
Oh, yeah.
The pandemic, economic uncertainty, AI, an election.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we're ready for a bullish market, but you've got to plan. You cannot wing it. And what I love about scaling is that you get to be as creative as you want to be. And especially with AI, there is literally no limit on what you can create in your business.
Yeah. How do you, there's a couple of things I want to go back to, but for now, like just on foreseeing the next handful of years in terms of scale, like are there any threats, opportunities that are just glaring to you, things that you share with others? Because I've read a bunch of AI reports, of which industries will be shaken up the most. But of course, there's replacing jobs or positions, but it's going to create a whole bunch of new ones. And there's massive opportunity. Like you said, a bull run. I think that's going to happen. Probably not across the board, though, for everyone. You got to be prepared, like you said, and start foreseeing this stuff.
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
think?
I mean, AI is going to replace a lot of companies. And so you need to figure out how you're going to differentiate yourself and in your industry, and how do you utilize AI to either build out new tools within your company or set yourself apart. Use it to fuel you and not to stifle you or disrupt you. So I think that's going to be really critical. I definitely believe that there are some service businesses that will probably go away. But, like for instance, I think community, if you have a business that creates a community, that is extremely valuable because
Yep.
I think people are craving that connection. And I think you can create community around many types of businesses. So you want to be thinking, where is that people connection? And where's the craft in your business? I think people are really going to pay, a higher amount for things that are one of a kind, that are, especially made. So I think there's
Good
still
point.
so many ways to take the business that you have and help it to evolve. But just like any time, you always want to be thinking of the customer first, and what is it that the customer wants? Staying customer focused, and then work backwards from there.
Yeah, working backwards is usually key, and that's the part. So you mentioned holistically, because that's something when I was doing research and notes, and even your background in homeopathy, And I think that spurred from, experience as well. Like, what does that mean for one, this whole holistic approach to business and how, I'm thinking the background because one of your businesses was basically centered on that. It sounds like, and I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of the gaps and stuff. So yeah, give me your thoughts there.
Yeah. I discovered homeopathy when I went through this terrible car accident and then which led to a divorce. And I was kind of in a definitely lost place in my life. And at the time, somebody recommended this homeopathic physician. And I grew up in the Midwest. I knew nothing about holistic, okay?
Yeah.
And I remember going there, and this was in my late 20s. I remember walking to the door of this woman and I stood there for a minute before I knocked on the door, and I ended up staying, but I almost left because I was questioning it all. And the experience ended up changing my life. And we don't need to get into a homeopathy lesson here,
Right.
but what homeopathy does is it treats the whole person. And for me back then, it just helped me get my grounding. It helped me to clear my head and build my confidence because, when everything fell apart, I started questioning everything and my own capability and also what I wanted in the future. So it helped me to figure all of that out and deal with some aches and pains and things that I was going through. And I became fascinated by it. And I was trying to figure out what was my next move. And so I went back to school and studied to become a homeopathic physician. And I ended up running that practice for 20 years while I was building other companies as well. And I ended up building the first homeopathic college in Southern California called the Homeopathic Academy of Southern California. And it still runs today. And we built it as a 3-year training program. And in homeopathy, because you are literally studying the human being from the inside out. You're getting to the core of what their issues are, even from childhood, and kind of unraveling all of that. And so when I moved on from that business, I still use homeopathy in my everyday life and, help with friends and so forth, that I don't have the practice anymore. I still look at the business owner the same way, and I look at the business the same way. Is that if you just coach somebody and say, I told you need to go do that, this is the thing you need to go after. And if they're not doing it, that means that there's some inner block. And if you don't get to that, they're just going to keep repeating that same pattern for the rest of their life, in their personal life and in their business. And then when we're looking at the business, same thing. What are those stop gaps that we've got to remove and so that the business can breathe and start to flourish? And from a holistic perspective, what that means is looking at the whole. In traditional medicine, you're treating a symptom and you're taking a medication for that particular symptom. But in holistic medicine, you're looking at the core, the cause of that symptom. If there's a fire burning in your house, you don't take a hammer and start banging the fire alarms to put out that fire. No, you got to get to the core of what started the fire in the first place, so it doesn't keep repeating. And that's the same thing for the business owner and the business. So all of that work that I did in homeopathy has really helped me. And then we went on to build this method called the Scale It method, and it deals with all 5 pillars of the business from a holistic perspective, which is the strategic vision, the cash flow, which is marketing and sales, and the organization of your finances, alliance of the team, leadership, and execution. So all industries need these 5 pillars completely shored up within these companies for them to scale. You can't just focus on, I need more leads, or, I need this one team member because I'm out of bandwidth. You have to look at it from the holistic perspective.
Got it. Yeah, and I know you have a whole method there, the Scale It method. So is there a good, because I know, in terms of time, we won't be able to go through the whole thing here and break it down. But is there a good spot or place, next step, that people could jump to understand that a little bit more from you?
Yeah, well, one thing is to get my book, which is called Scale or Fail. And you can, get that on Amazon. And we really I break down the Scale It method there and give you all types of processes. And really, any level of business, this works. We've had, companies that are in the 9 figures use that book, and companies that are startups.
Wow,
so that's a
cool.
great place to start. And you can also just go to our website, which is pinnacleglobalnetwork.com.
Nice.
And then we put a little URL together for those listening to your Hustle and Flow podcast, for anybody that wants to have a CEO strategist really look at their business and figure out, what phase are you in? What is your biggest gap keeping you from scaling to the next level of your business? And that is scaleit.ceo/hustle.
Nice. Thank you. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. And I'll make sure that's in the show notes, linked everywhere. Super easy to find. Allison, this is great. I have so many other questions, but we'll see where it goes in the future. Maybe we'll do it again. But thank you for doing this and sharing your story. I think that's the biggest thing. One of the biggest takeaways for me is just how everyone can relate to your path, your journey. Maybe not all of us, got raised in an entrepreneurial family, but it doesn't matter. We all have some background that we get to see in the mirror, however we look at, we do that practice.
We're here to evolve and grow. And I think that those bumps and bruises, there are research and development. So embrace them, and just know that whatever you're going through in your business and your life right now is leading to you to exactly where you want to be. Yeah. So instead of trying to dodge them, embrace those moments and those lessons, because it's beautiful on the other side.
Awesome. And we have the choice, right? Just like opening the door to the location, and you chose to walk in and see the other side. So we all have that choice.
Exactly.
Allison, thank you. Appreciate you so much. And
thank you so much for having me.
See you next time at the mastermind.
Yeah. We'll see you there soon.
All right.